I'd love to get to a point where I'm getting more of my business out, but it's hard for me, to be honest with you, because, those people, they're looking at me to help get their home sold. So I take that relationship pretty seriously.
Welcome to a private conversation with me, Steve Robbins. I'm sitting down with some of the biggest names in Indianapolis real estate. I've enjoyed these conversations immensely, and I hope you will too. A big thank you to Executive GM Ian Soroyan and his whole team for hosting us at Cunningham Restaurant Group's Commission Row and Mel's Speakeasy, located in downtown Indianapolis within the Pacer Sports and Entertainment Complex. Check out the show notes to learn more. And now, my conversation with my former business partner and longtime friend, Alan Williams.
You're the first person, so like I said, I've had 9 people on here before, but you're really the first where it's someone who I know better.
Right.
Like probably the person I've knew the best. Well, Mark Branch, obviously, besides Mark. And Mark I know currently. With you, I used to see every day. Now I hardly ever see you anymore.
It's crazy.
We should get together more often.
We really should. I told Brian, I was like, I want to get together and grab drinks with you and stuff, just knowing,
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, sounds good. We should get together.
Well, let's do that.
At some point.
Yeah, and I told you I wanted to shoot a special episode where me, you, Brian, and Chris all sit together.
There'd be some funny stories.
And maybe in the evening and maybe with a couple of cocktails. But that'd be fun. Yeah, we'll have to maybe, censor a few things, but that's okay.
That's what editing is for, right?
So I don't even know where to start with you because, we haven't seen like I said, we used to see each other every day and now we don't see each other very often. But you're busy doing all kinds of great things.
That's it.
And so,
you too. Congratulations on your guys' success.
It's been great, but
yeah.
You've been, shit, dude, you're like top 5. Maybe you're going to be shooting for #1 agent in the city. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, not just me. We've got a team.
Absolutely.
Dick Richwine and I kind of combined forces a few years back, which I know you know. And so, those are all numbers together. So
yes.
Alan doing that.
I know.
That's true, but it's been fun. We got a good group and good company behind us.
Well, how'd you end up even partnering up with Dick?
It's interesting. I was at ERA.
Yeah.
With Mike Deck.
Yes.
And I was there for several years, and the contract was coming up with the ERA franchise, and we knew that we weren't going to continue down that path with ERA. So there was a group put together, and we talked to several different companies. You name it, we talked to them. And just the one that aligned and just kind of fit best was Berkshire Hathaway. I think our brands really aligned, that clientele, just, a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like the fact they had an office in Fishers, 8 minutes from my home, and, office at Keystone at the Crossing. So we went down that path, and COVID hit. It was 2020 when all hope
was that when you went from, so you guys went from ERA to Berkshire in 2020?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, sure did. And so up to that point, I don't even know if I had a conversation with Dick up to that point. And so when we joined Berkshire Hathaway, still part of Mike's, group, that was the first chance that I had to really talk to him much or really get to know him and, some of the people on his team. And obviously I always respected him. Everybody knows who Dick Richwine is, and that goes without saying. And, just over time, he had some transitions on his team. And, he was now thinking about, well, maybe, 10 years from now, maybe I'll slow down a little bit. And if I'm going to do that, I better find somebody, to maybe team up with. So we had some conversations and decided it was a good fit. I think, his importance on service was right at the same level as me. So it was a very easy transition, but it's been great. He's a fantastic mentor.
He's a legend.
He is a legend. And it's kind of funny because it's, I don't know if he thinks it's funny, but, Dick, we joined forces. It was, I guess he would have been late 70s, maybe just a little bit younger than that. But now he'll run into someone that he's known and they'll say, "Oh, congratulations on your retirement." He's like, "Retired?" It's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, well, we heard you were retired. We have a friend that's a real estate agent that does really well, and that agent told us, oh, Dick, he's retired. He's long gone. So we listed with that agent, not realizing it." And he's like, nothing could be further from the truth. But it's hilarious. I mean, I don't know how well you know Dick.
I've met him a couple times and talked to him. I mean, he's such a great guy.
Great guy.
Like, for someone who's achieved so much, he is humble.
Very humble. And the guy has more energy than probably you and I put together. I mean, he runs circles. And I mean, he's probably puts in 50 hours a week, goes into the office every day, plays tennis. I mean, and his book of business is pretty impressive.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
Well, so you had already achieved quite a bit up until the point that you partnered up with Dick, but what have you learned from him?
Well, I think a couple things, and I don't know if there's plenty of things I've learned from him, but I think the other things was just some of the things that were important to me. It's kind of reinforced that.
Okay.
Our industry's changed quite a bit since COVID. And I think the service side, we've got a motto on our team, and that is relationships over commissions.
Yeah.
Okay. And so.
And you've been great at relationships since forever.
And so that's just been very important to him, very important to me. I think that the one thing that's kind of nice when you're, when you have a mentor that's older, it's like an older brother, right?
Yeah.
And, they give you a noogie in your head and they slap you around a little bit and say, all right, learn from my mistakes. And the one thing that just kind of stuck out that he talks about often, not just with me, but with the team, is, having a good work-life balance. And, for him, when he, his first probably 10 years in the business, he was working full-time for the government and selling real estate full-time.
Really?
Probably making 3 times more money selling real estate. And finally, he had to kind of give up the job with the government. But he just, he works so many hours, and it can add stress to family life, right? And so that was just one of the things that he mentioned to me is like, make sure you're kind of keeping a close eye on that, and that you're not working too many hours, and that I'm not getting emails from you at 3 a.m. in the morning. And so I think those things, but then just the other things that he's really good at is, as you're in this business and you do it more and more, just really staying in touch with those clients that you had from 20 years ago. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'll reach out to him. He's like, oh, I'm at dinner with this client that, I sold them a lot on Geist, 35 years ago. And he does such a good job of keeping up with those people and offering help for things that is not going to benefit him at all.
Yeah.
Those are just a few. I mean, there could be 100 that I could give you.
Of course.
Just a few.
Yeah. Well, a little bit about our backstory. So you and I work together across from communities. We work with Brian and Carrie and Chris, and we were all together, and that's a first-time home buyer builder.
Back in our 20s.
I mean, and we had a lot of fun.
We did.
I mean, that was, if you look at that group of people, and when Mike Deck was sitting here in that chair, he was on the Trinity side, we had the Crossman side, so, there's a little bit of a difference.
Yeah.
But the amazing group of people that have come from both of those sides and the success that they've had. And so, we were sold together for a few years at Crossman, and then we started Easy Street Realty.
You were in the mortgage business.
Well, I started with the builder on the mortgage side.
Right.
That's where I met Amy.
Yep.
And then get into the sales side. Of course, I already knew Brian. I've known Brian since kindergarten.
Right.
And, we started Easy Street, and we didn't know what the hell we were doing, but we had a lot of fun, and we made a lot of money. I mean, we were marketing to apartment dwellers and turning them into first-time home buyers.
Yep.
And your role, you had been the principal broker, as that they were called at the time, and then you also had this love for the marketing side, and marketing was huge because our whole business proposition and value proposition to our agents was, we'll do the marketing, we'll generate the leads, we'll share those leads with you. Mike sitting in that chair also talked about how wonderful you are at marketing and how you're a marketing genius. And so
I'm good at stealing.
I was thinking the
ideas.
other day about us getting into an argument about, because we were promoting a floor plan that was large, more square feet, less money if you can figure out which building that was. And you were talking, and you wanted to put in the ad, riding vacuum cleaner needed. Do you remember this?
I still use that.
I bet you do. And, that was a good one. And just, how has the marketing aspect been still such a big thing in what you're doing today? I mean, your social media looks great. Obviously, you're not selling first-time homes anymore very often, and you guys are doing luxury on average. And, listen, the Indianapolis market doesn't have a very big luxury market in general, but you're taking a big slice of it in the Fishers and Geist area predominantly. But so tell me about how the marketing of what we were doing back then versus today.
Gosh, it's just so different. I mean, back then, you hit it. I mean, when we started Easy Street, it wasn't our idea. There was,
Yes.
Kerry Campbell with Realty Alliance was really the trailblazer back then with that.
And then do you remember Craig Hamilton was doing it on his own? Warren Griffin was doing it on his own. Danny Newport was with Kerry at the time, and then he did 3-2-1 or.
Yeah, and so the model was going in the middle of the night to apartment complexes and dropping off a flyer, and when somebody came out the next morning, they'd see this flyer that says, "Hey, you could buy this house for less than what you're paying in rent."
Yeah.
And we'll throw in some appliances too. Call us.
Yep.
And I just remember sitting in the model home. I mean, gosh, Carrie and that group. I mean, I can't even imagine, how many deals they were doing, but it was crazy, and it definitely got our attention.
Oh yeah.
But so when we started, we kind of started, if you remember, doing the same thing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And as a matter of fact, we were selling still and running the company.
Yes.
And my first sale at Easy Street was a guy that was renting in Castleton, and it was a spec home in Fishers. Met him there, ended up buying it.
What builder?
It was Crossman.
Okay.
And lo and behold, I'm still very good friends with him. As a matter of fact, I'm getting ready to list a property for him today.
Your very first sale?
Very first sale.
How cool is that?
I mean, I probably, from that first sale, I bet you 20 others. And at the time, he and his brother owned a very small, kind of like, buy here, pay here car.
Oh, I know exactly who you're talking about.
And it's Yusuf Barham.
Yes.
Who, then they, elevated to coast imports, which was Fishers.
Yeah.
And now they have the Bentley dealership in Indianapolis. And so it's been so cool to see him transition
From buy here, pay here to Bentley.
to, from
That's
from
kind of like
from $105,000 house. I'm not even gonna,
Right.
mention what he's living in now.
It's got a few more
All the
zeros.
things that he's done amazingly well.
Well, that's kind of like your story.
Well, so on the marketing side, it's just everything's been elevated. Our cell phones. I think when we first got into the business was when Nextel came out.
Oh yeah, we
was the
all
first
still have the
cell
same phone
phone.
numbers.
Yeah.
You're 5'6", I'm 5'7".
So
Brian's 5'8".
there was no like getting on to look things up, and didn't even have texting back then. And so the phones, obviously, that's a huge deal. But the marketing side, I don't know. It's always just been a passion of mine. Something that I often say, if I was recreated, I probably would have an ad agency. You know what I mean? Something I've always just enjoyed.
Yeah. Well, how has social media changed all that for you?
Well, you got to get a lot more comfortable in front of a camera.
Yep.
I think, the consistency is huge. It's easier said than done sometimes. And just like the content, I mean, people don't realize, I don't think, just how much work it really does take. And I can't tell you how many people are better at that social media game than me. I mean, they're just amazing. And a lot of them are younger.
Oh yeah.
Too. And they've just taken to it.
Of course.
So the social media thing has been huge, for a lot of realtors. And I think, the websites there was so much importance on the websites years ago. And I don't know. I feel like with now you've got apps and you've got, a lot of different platforms that website's still important, but there's some other, elements in the game now that, people are paying a lot more attention to.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned running an ad agency because in social media in the same conversation here, because I always liken social media to the advent of the PC, the personal computer. And it's like the personal computer brought at-home computing that the major corporations had in the way that an ad agency, now social media can essentially be an ad agency for you for free. I mean, back at Easy Street, we were paying DTH how much a month when we hired an ad agency? Remember that?
How I charge now.
Yo, geez. That's the thing. So social media brings that home to the consumer the way a PC was.
Yeah.
And it's free. Like, if you're not leveraging social media in this business.
That was a big leap for us back then.
Oh, yeah.
That was a huge cost.
It was.
Let's hope it pays off.
Yeah. Whether it did or didn't, I don't know.
Well, good commercials out of it.
Yeah, we got a couple good commercials out of it. So, kind of going back in time then. So, we're business partners. We had opened up other offices in other cities. We were in 03, we opened in Vegas. 04, we opened in Tampa. 05, Charlotte. 07, we started what was our first kind of franchise or franchise type agreement in Twin Cities. And then the crash hits. And so what's your memories of going through the GFC, the Great Financial Crisis, as it's called these days in real estate?
Well, it was shortly before that I transitioned out, because if you remember, like, I was selling a lot of houses still, and
You were.
personal business was kind of at that level that
It was taking off.
and I didn't make some decisions, and so with coaching kids and sports and having 3 kids and just all of that, I just felt like it was the right time to transition out. But the time that I remember,
We
about
still
that
miss you,
was-
by the way.
Well,
It's not as fun.
I mean,
There's less jokes
Aaron
being cracked.
and I talk about it a lot. We had some really good time there.
Oh, sure.
But I think the thing that stands out to me was just, for the first time, it was always one of those deals where, it was like, the money's going to be there. The money's going to be there until it wasn't there. Right. And that was the first time it was like, oh, wow, I don't have any closings coming up and I don't have anything on the horizon.
The crash was bad.
Get, closed and I was like, oh, wow. So it was a lot of stress, financially for my family. I mean, we almost imploded financially. Fortunately, that didn't happen. But I mean, there was some close calls there. And I often say that crash made a lot of savers savers before, and and myself included. So just a lot of fear, a lot of unknown. But it was interesting because I think it would have been, let's call it 2009. It was the worst year that I had ever had in the business. But what it did is it kind of taught me, reinforced perseverance a little bit because, I ended up, doing the real estate thing. And then a good friend of mine, Dan Deslin, owned a commercial cleaning company. And so I would moonlight there, doing marketing and things like that.
I forgot you were doing that.
And so just to be able to pay the bills until things came back through.
You probably don't know this, but I'm sure that there were times where you thought, I don't know how those guys are going to make it because it was so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, we were in Vegas and Florida, which were like, we weren't in California at that time, but we were in like the epicenter of the crash.
Right.
You could see, this was in 2012, you could see the green shoots were starting to pop through.
Yeah.
So it was a risk that was willing to take, but there was an IRA cashed in to make payroll.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how bad it was.
Yeah.
And we held on by the skin of our teeth.
Yeah.
And
A lot
then
of people did.
kind of things, it was February 2012 where things really started to turn. And you could see it coming, and then it did come, and then slowly one kind of step at a time. And then we started opening up offices in other places and got back into the groove. But man, that was rough. Now, the last 3 or 4 years have been very strange in a different way.
Right.
But with the pandemic and then rates shooting up out of the blue. And now we'll get to this, but you're dealing in a price point very often where people aren't near as rate sensitive. But, we're on pace for maybe under 4 million homes sold this year in the United States, which it's possibly a record low. So, I mean, it's not been good.
Right.
For the market.
Right.
But, we'll see. Then we've got the election, and we've got all kinds of things that are, who knows how it's going to throw, monkey wrenches into the beginning of 2025. It's going to be
never boring. I mean, this business, you never get bored with it.
No.
Yeah.
I've said this, I don't know how many times, but if for a while I would say something like, I'm sure the market will get normal this year or next year. And I'm convinced after 25 years, there is no normal market. Like, we've not experienced that.
Right. No, there's not. There's always something. But
well, so then you did go out on your own, and you joined Mike Deck, who was with ERA. And then tell me about kind of, that was the thing about us starting a real estate company. We didn't know what the hell we were doing.
No, we did. We figured it out as we went.
And we made plenty of mistakes, didn't have mentors, and just learned by loss sometimes and learned the hard way sometimes.
Got lucky a lot of times, too.
Well,
I mean,
we
had an office with no furniture in it, and, somehow we managed to buy all the furniture in it for like $1,500.
Well, that was you working your negotiation magic.
Wow, so we had some luck along the way, too, but...
Remember your book, Bare Knuckle Negotiating?
Oh, yeah.
We always joked. I always joked that it was brass knuckle negotiating.
Yeah, and then there'd be, something wouldn't go right, and Brian would say, "Oh, did you get your paper mache? Not the negotiation."
Exactly. Yeah, Brian's always good for us.
He's got the one-liners.
Listen, you're the king of one-liners, so don't give me that.
It's true.
But so then you go into a new environment.
Right.
Where it's someone, and Mike obviously is, he's not where he is today, but he was also, at that point very successful.
Right.
What did you realize that you hadn't learned by us doing it? And we were doing such a niche thing, selling only new homes at first.
Right.
And then, you had kind of started to slowly expand out of new home sales and more in just general real estate.
Right.
But what kind of eye-opening things did you kind of experience in the first few years of being away from us, where we were in our own little bubble?
Right. Yeah, I would say, it's interesting. I could look back at points in my life, and I was like, man, if I wouldn't have met that person or that group of people, or I didn't have that opportunity, like, my life probably would have been so different. So I've been really fortunate. I think, God's probably like, this kid needs like some guardrails up to protect him. We're going to put these people in his life. But Mike, it's interesting. I met Mike the first time when I was an assistant in the model home at CP Morgan. There's a neighborhood called Williamson Run in Carmel. You know where that is?
Yeah.
Mike worked now this would have been 94 maybe.
Okay.
Mike was working for the phone company at that time.
Right.
Okay.
He talked about that.
And so, he bought a spec home in the neighborhood. You were using it, and then we moved into it, used it as a model. He bought it. And so he came in one day, and he, he's just wringing his hands. He's just nervous Nelly. And I'm like, Mike, you all right? He's like, I'm just so nervous. I said, well, what are you nervous about? He goes, I bought this house, and the house is probably $215,000, let's say. Nice house. $250,000 back then.
Yeah,
I bought your pretty nice place. And he was just like, I just don't know if I'm going to be able to afford it. He was like, I just started this real estate thing, and that's going okay, but, I really like to quit my job at the telephone company. And I was like a counselor for him there for 10 minutes. And he's like, well, if it doesn't work out, I guess I can just sell it. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I said, Mike, I'm sure it's going to work out for you. And he left. I was like, well, hope it's going to work out. And now look at it. You'd buy the neighborhood, if you wanted to. And So I think that, the difference from when I left Easy Street to when, in between that, I left Easy Street. I took a year. I don't know if you remember this or not. I took
Refresh my memory. Yeah.
because I was like, okay, I don't want to rush.
I
into
totally
it.
forgot that. Damn.
And so, I talked to all the different, players in town, the big companies, and talked to them about, being an agent, being an office manager, really trying to think what my next steps were. And that was the year I was out on my own when, the market just tanked. Right? And so, I'm trying to think, strategically also. It would be nice to have a salary as an office manager, but probably not where really I want to be. And so I met with Mike and we worked out a deal. And I don't know, you just meet somebody and you just feel like you're just comfortable.
Yeah.
Right. And Mike was that guy. And so, what I learned from him is just, again, it was like the thing that he did was he really focused, instead of trying to be everything to everyone, he was really dialed in. And his area that he was dialed in was like golf course neighborhoods.
Yes.
At that time, it was Bridgewater.
Yep.
And when I, joined his team, he was still a nervous wreck because he had just built that beautiful building in Bridgewater. He's like, I'm the only idiot that is building a building during this, housing crash.
That, what you just said is literally what he said.
Yeah.
On the show.
So he, so I get in there, but I saw how much business he was doing in Bridgewater.
Oh, yeah.
He'd ride his golf cart to work. I was like, oh, pretty cool. So what I decided was, okay, I'm going to buy my first domain name. And so I ended up buying fishersrealestate.com. And
I remember that.
Time,
I remember that.
It was...
What'd you pay for that?
$5,000.
Okay.
Which was, now remember, like, it's a housing crash.
Oh, yeah.
It was not a popular decision in my household. But I was like, okay, we're going to get behind this. And then instead of me being everything ever, I'm going to focus on Fishers. I live in Fishers. My kids go to school here. We're in sports here. We go to church here. And I liked the domain because it was just tied to Fishers. So that's what we did. So the first year, as I mentioned, after I left, it was probably the worst year I had in my career as far as business.
Yeah.
But just kept doing, the same things over, just not letting up.
Consistency.
Running back, they teach them, listen, you get hit at the line, keep your feet moving, right? You might find that hole and get a couple more yards. When this market changes or when you get slow, it's important to do that, right? So that's what I just kept doing. And the next year, it was the best year I ever had in real estate. So it was that one down year, but then we really jumped back up. So, and I attribute a lot of that to just kind of focusing and putting the marketing dollars, in the Fishers versus multiple places.
I think that's one of the biggest places where I guess what I'm trying to say is here, that's an area where agents really don't focus enough, is targeting and having a niche. There's just not enough agents that do that.
Right.
And I think it's super smart. Obviously, it's worked for you. It worked for Mike. It works for almost anybody that stays with it long enough.
Right. That's the key, I think.
And so Fishers, tell me how it grew from there.
Yeah, so
well, you had the office right on 116th Street next to the Handles.
Yeah,
you were proud to have that bench there where people could sit.
2 years later, I had the TV up.
Yeah, the TV.
And the office, that came about by accident.
Okay.
I was driving to, nearly Westfield.
Yeah.
Growth office, right? Which was fine, not a big deal. But so my grand marketing, plan was to find storefronts that were empty, because there was a lot of empty storefronts back then.
Yep.
And lease the window space from the landlord and put a TV up that had a scrolling video with our marketing in it. Okay? Wouldn't cost much, but put it in areas that people are going to congregate.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to the person that had, the office space next to Handles on 116th, and I started talking to him about it. Well, how much would it be? And he's like, I could just tell he wanted to lease it out. And I said, well, what would be the best that you'd be able to do on that? And I mean, I got that thing for a song. And we stayed there for probably 5 years. And then, more shops came in, and I knew that the parking was a situation. I came back from an appointment with a buyer, looking at some nice houses. He was driving a really nice car, Mercedes. It was being towed out of the parking lot because the guy at the nail salon next door thought someone left the car there overnight. So I was like, this is forward. But it was great while it lasted. So, we had the office there in Fishers, which had some really great branding.
Yeah.
We started doing some billboard stuff. I got the phone number 317 Fishers.
Oh, yeah.
And so we did some billboards with that. And then really, I mean, you asked what was one of the things that, I just kind of learned from Mike is just he was so good about hammering the center of influence list monthly. And he was the king of doing like drop-bys, like, drop a pie off for, he's the guy that our basement at the office looks like a Toys R Us at Christmas because he's got people wrapping stuff and he's delivering gifts to clients. I mean, he's just one of the most generous guys you're ever going to meet. So kind of focused on that, but, between that and then just really dialing in the Fishers thing, we started to get some traction there.
Commission Row offers an unforgettable dining experience with high-quality steaks, a raw bar, and exquisite seafood curated by an expert culinary team. The menu, designed to delight every palate, features seasonal ingredients paired with an extensive wine and spirit selection. Open weekdays from 4 p.m. and for brunch at 10 a.m. on weekends. Continue the evening at Mel's Speakeasy below. After dining, enjoy an after-dinner drink with a wide selection of wines, cocktails, and spirits. Open daily from 5 p.m., Mel's is perfect for relaxing and unwinding. Commission Row and Mel's Speakeasy, an unforgettable dining experience awaits.
It kind of expanded into Geist.
It did.
And how that happened.
I mean, honestly, we went into, what was the name? At Geist magazine. Do you remember the atgeist.com?
Okay. Yeah.
It was, he had that before he started doing the Town Post magazine. So we started doing some things there. And it's kind of funny. I mean, what prompted me to do that office is I got a call from a guy that lived in Admiral's Point, and he wanted me to list the house. So I listed it, had somebody that came through, ended up buying it. I was able to help on both deals, and I was like, okay, this is too good to be true. If it happens, then I'm going to do the office. If it doesn't happen, I'm not going to do it. Well, it went through, and we had the office opened. But it was just, I think, a situation. Geist is so close to Fishers. And my kids went to St. Louis Montford Catholic School. There was a lot of families that lived in Geist that brought their kids there. So we got to know them.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of how it happened.
It happened.
Yeah.
So, do you have any particular goals moving forward here? I mean, you've built something that's really special.
Yep.
You got an amazing partner with Dick.
Yeah.
And how big's your team right now?
So when Dick and I combined, and the numbers were pretty similar now, Dick probably had, not including any admin staff, maybe say 12 agents. We got 8. So between us, it's 20.
Okay.
And, you've got some that, are, they're pretty steady, consistent. And then, you got some that are just, they knock it out of the park also. Aaron Bratton.
Yeah.
Being one of those guys. And so, 20 agents, we stay pretty consistent there.
And are you wanting to grow to any particular, what goals do you have? What's your eye? You're a goal-oriented person.
Yeah, I'm
so what's important? What's next?
Yeah, so next really is, I wouldn't say that we want to grow the team.
Right.
I think it's just, the team, the agents that we have there is really just helping them, grow the business that they want. We've got a couple of younger agents that just got their licenses. I wouldn't normally have taken them on, but it was either, family friend or in both cases, they're both go-getters.
Good.
I mean, they can do whatever they want. So really just trying to put some systems in place. We do marketing for our team. We take care of the drop-bys 4 times a year. We do some social media stuff. We've got a full-time marketing person on the team now, so Nita is able to help out a lot with making sure that we're giving them things to put on social media and sending things out every month for them to their COI. But there's a lot more that
Brian would
I
be
should
joking
do.
about you delegating
Yeah,
quite a bit to the marketing person, I'm sure.
I'm the delegate. But, there's a lot more that I want to do for the agents. A lot of things that I think that we can maybe bring to the table that maybe is a little bit different than what's out there right now.
Yeah.
As far as, me personally, I'd love to get to a point where, I'm getting more of my business out. But it's hard for me, to be honest with you, because, those people, they're looking at me
Yeah.
to help get their home sold. So I take that relationship pretty seriously, obviously.
And you enjoy it.
I do enjoy it.
Like, you enjoy it as much as anybody I know.
I love it.
And what do you love about it so much?
Yeah, I think on the buyer side, it's been fun because now, I'm closing houses for kids of the people that I sold to before.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like, you buy your first car, if you screw up on that first car, you're always kind of just behind, right? So just trying to educate them, trying to get them to slow down even a little bit. I always joke, I love talking myself out of getting a commission because, there's several times you're like, well, we love it. And you're just like, well, just sleep on it, don't make a rash decision and let's think through these things. Have you thought through all the utility bills? And so, for like the first time buyers and stuff, I really enjoy that. And then if it's a situation to where, it's just a unique house, I really enjoy that because I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, what can we do here? Can we build a website? What kind of videos could we do? How can we, set this house apart from the other ones that are currently on the market? I really love it when we get, an expired listing. Someone, couldn't get sold before. They're coming to us. All right, well, what can we do different here, to get it sold? And, there's times you just get lucky.
Yeah.
You just never know.
It's true.
Has happened to all of us. I've had houses that I've carried for a year and they're like, we're going to part ways. And, a week later they got on the market and I'm talking to my wife. I'm like, I wonder how that one, she gives me that look and I'm like, oh God, did it sell? And it sold. What a loser I am, but
Oh, yeah.
so it cuts both ways, right? But I think the creativity side of the listings is fun.
Yeah.
And then just really, walking not only our sellers, but the buyers through that process of, hey, don't just think about today. Think about, what's your exit strategy? Is this a house that you think you're going to be in with your job? Are you going to relocate in 2 years? What makes the most sense so that if you do have to sell it in a couple of years, you're not going to get crushed, because right now the prices have gone up quite a bit. Yep. So those are the things I enjoy. Yeah.
What's been from going to us working at a first-time home buyer builder and focusing on helping first-time home buyers to really the luxury end of real estate, what's the biggest difference?
It's interesting. It's like, I remember when my first luxury listing, I want to say it was like 800,000 in Hamilton proper, and Todd and Mel Hulkyard, who I actually coached their daughter in soccer, they gave me a shot. They both, they had worked at Lilly and they were going to be selling this house. And that was the first time I was like, I'm going to build a website for you. Yeah. I'd never done that before. And so they gave me a shot. We ended up getting it sold and was able to kind of build on it from there. But it's interesting. It's, the people are very much the same.
Right.
Regardless of the price point. They've got a goal in mind. My job is just to figure out, okay, what's important to you here? Is it a hassle factor? Is it price? Is it terms? What's your family dynamic like? Like how, for showings, what's going to be the best approach for us to get people through the door here? The one thing I think they're less conscious about interest rates, probably.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the big things.
A lot of them are paying cash.
A lot of them are paying cash. We've not had, and we've had, some sales of luxury houses to where the seller moved into a rental,
Right.
with the hopes of the craziness dying down, and then prices went up and interest rates doubled.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And
That
so
didn't work out.
there's a lot of people, on the sideline right now that are now, starting to get engaged. And I think you're going to see a lot of that next year.
I think so too.
And so I think that's some of the difference. But I'll tell you, last year, I think our most expensive sale that we had was over $3 million in Carmel.
Mm-hmm.
Least expensive was $10,000 in Terre Haute. It was a referral from a client, and it was her dad's house. Needed to sell it, didn't really know who to turn to, and we ended up selling it. Drove it to Terre Haute probably 3 times, and
You did?
$10,000. Well, yeah. It was another agent's deal, but that agent was ill,
Okay.
so kind of took it over.
Okay.
We ended up getting it done. So
Cool.
10,000 to
Yeah.
we do everything.
You do everything.
No matter where, obviously. Terre Haute, Fort Wayne, wherever.
So, tell me about the kids.
Kids are great.
Ross, Morgan, Brooke.
Yep. And
Where are each of they? And how old are each of them now?
yeah, so Ross is 25.
That's hard to believe, man.
It's crazy. He graduated from Butler a few years ago. Doing great. Ain't the same girl for, over 5 years.
Okay.
And we love her. She's a teacher. She's great. He's doing phenomenal. He's in insurance sales.
Okay.
So he's doing that. Been able to give him some insurance business as well.
I bet, yeah.
Homeowners
What does he do? Is he do all? What all insurance?
It's auto, life. It's mainly those. Umbrella.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then Morgan. Morgan's 23, and she's a nurse at Riley. She graduated in the spring from IU nursing school.
Cool.
And she's fiercely independent, and she is a go-getter. Without a doubt, if she puts her mind to something, you guarantee it's going to get done without question. And she's doing great. So she's at Riley. And then Brooke, the youngest, Brooke is, she's 20, she's 21 in June. She's counting down the days, I'm sure. And she is a sophomore at IU right now, doing the sorority thing, and loving that. And then I got remarried a little over 7 years ago, and my wife Becky's got 2 kids. So her oldest is Nick, and he is a senior at Kelly at IU.
Okay.
Really smart kid, fun kid, great group of friends. I mean, we're up there tailgating all the time. I love it.
That's probably fun. You're reliving your old days.
Well, I didn't do much tailgating.
That is true.
I went to a community college and dropped out after 3 months.
I got some questions for you about New York here in a second.
Yeah. So, and then Becky's youngest is Ava, and Ava's 18, and she is a freshman at the University of Alabama.
Okay.
So we've been there
Also fun.
twice in 3 weeks, and
Did you go to a game?
we went to 2. Yeah, I went to South Carolina, and then we went to Mizzou.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's been fun. So we're empty nesters now. We got a bulldog named Rizzo, and a cat named Walter. It's kind of taken up our attention.
Well, what is it? I'm a new empty nester myself. What's it like for you?
It's been great. Honestly, I miss the kids desperately, and actually, Ava's coming home on Thursday, so we'll have her for a little bit before she goes back. But it was weird a little bit,
Definitely.
It was weird, but it was almost like, well, you want to go to dinner? It's like, and so we really enjoyed it. I can tell you there's always things to do.
Right.
It's not like we're just sitting around twiddling our thumbs saying, okay, well, what are we supposed to do tonight? We'll always have things going on. But as much as, I miss the kids. Yeah, it's been fun. It's been different. And now once you're an empty nester, then you start thinking about, oh, well, we don't have to go on spring break this year because you want to go somewhere, and you just start thinking.
Yeah.
Your mindset changes a little bit, I guess. And I think that happens when you turn 50 as well. I don't know if you felt that way. I certainly did. When I got 40, life was good.
Yeah, I was
50, I was like, eesh.
the body is definitely, so we're both 53.
Yeah.
All four of us are the same age.
Yep.
And I was just talking to Kyle Morris about it. We sat down before you and I did, and I am still playing basketball.
Yeah.
I haven't played actually for a few weeks. I don't know if I can keep saying I am, but I need to play again. But I've completely lost any explosion whatsoever. But I can still shoot.
I play with my sons, Nick and Ross, and I'll tell you, I could keep up with them, and I could beat them.
You're a hustler.
And we were at South Haven a couple summers ago, and had a few drinks, and I was like, they were talking a little trash, and I was like, well, let's go play right now. It was not a good situation.
Right.
I think I landed on my butt probably 3 times. I was like, okay, probably not going to do that again.
I know.
That was the first time I felt my age.
Really? That was
that was one of those moments I was like, wow, my mind goes a lot faster than my feet.
right.
And I was like, okay, well, this changes things a little bit.
It does. I know I can't beat my kids in actual basketball. Maybe in horse.
We used to have some good games.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe we need to play again. Tell what else is happening in your world that's fun right now.
Well, I mean, other than, just enjoying, empty nester life right now, I really digging into the business. Last year was, I took a couple of days and just went away with, a box of files. And my wife and I were going to take a trip, and she wasn't able to go. And so I just went by myself because I was like, you know what? This would be a great time for me to get a bunch of stuff done. It was in the fourth quarter. It was early November, right around this time last year. And
You've always kind of done that, where you like to kind of get away and do a little personal retreat.
Unplug.
Yeah.
And so we've got some friends that own a beautiful luxury cabin in the Smokies.
Okay.
And they Airbnb. And I'll tell you, if anybody's ever looking to get away and in a gorgeous cabin, reach out to me. I'll give you the information on it. But it's amazing. So went there. Phone reception was terrible, in certain times, and didn't turn the TV on once. Left the cabin twice in 3 days just to get food and come back. But it was at that point that I was like, okay, I need to hire a marketing person because I'm spending a lot of time doing the social media stuff, making the posts,
Right.
all that. So I decided at that point I need to hire him. But then what I did at that point was I really broke down our listing presentation.
Okay.
And I mean, I've got pictures, the kitchen.
I could show you. I can see it. I've seen you do this before.
And so that was a lot of time that I spent. Now, this year I want to do something as well. We did that with our buyer's guide, relocation guide. But this year what I really want to do is break down the business and the systems.
Okay.
Because I've not been good about really putting good systems in place to be as efficient as possible. And so, times are most valuable commodity. And so I know that we'd be able to put some systems in place to maybe give me more time to focus on some other things that will make more sense. So that's one of the things that I'm excited about. But I mean, I'm also excited about, next year and the real estate market.
There's so much pent-up demand.
Yeah, I'm very.
You touched on it. It's true.
And you've seen a lot of agents kind of get out of the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that you're gonna probably continue to see some of that as well. But the ones that have stuck with it and kept moving their feet, I think it'd be a big year for them next year.
I know where I was going to go, and I told you I wanted to talk to you about New York and where you came from. And you were a firefighter before getting moving to Indianapolis.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Well, I grew up in a town called Geneva, New York. It's in the Fay area.
Yep.
It's between Rochester and Syracuse, about 30,000 people. And it's got a beautiful lake, Seneca Lake. I mean, right there in our hometown. I mean, I could walk from my house 10 minutes and see the water. And, they actually used to, it was so deep, they would actually, for World War II, they would test submarines there.
Wow.
And it was one of the deepest lakes in the country.
Okay.
And so, my parents were much older.
I definitely know that. I wanted to talk to you about your parents, because your parents, all the time I spent with you, I always felt like you had a special closeness with your family in that regard, and your parents and your sister and everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was born, my dad was almost 50.
Yeah.
And if this puts in just give you some perspective. My dad was in World War II.
That is crazy.
Okay, so for me, like, when I grew up, people probably thought that it was my grandparents, right? Because that fit. As a matter of fact, I have a niece that's my age who graduated the same year.
Right.
So, but, the thing that it was fantastic for me, looking back on it, because, they were just a different generation, right? And so, we grew up and we didn't have a lot of money. I saw friends living, big, beautiful homes, driving these really nice cars, but I didn't really notice any difference between the two. I just noticed their parents spend the money on those things and my parents don't, right? But what it did was it really instilled strong work ethic in me, because if it was a situation to where I wanted to go see a movie, or I wanted to go play arcade games, or go to amusement park, whatever, my parents weren't giving out $5 bills. Well, it was $5 back then. To go do that, I had to figure out how I was going to do it.
Yep.
And so I distinctly remember at 11 years old was the first time you had paper route. Did you ever paper route?
I did.
Okay. And for a kid, like, that was
how I made my first money too. Yeah.
Right? It was, you arrived.
Did you have to collect?
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. I had to collect.
Having to collect is something that a lot of kids have never had to experience. Trying to go up to a front door, knock, and trying to get someone to give you money.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I got my biggest tip ever. I mean, I think I got a $20 tip from someone. And back then,
That's huge.
That's huge. And it was from somebody that couldn't afford to give me a $20 tip. I went to collect, and, he opened the door, and there were literally 4 guys surrounding him. And they were shaking this guy down.
What?
And so I got there, and he's talking to me and stuff, and eventually these guys, I think, got nervous and left. And he's like,
Paperboy scared him?
He said, I just think their faces being seen, they're like, okay, we can't beat the hell out of this guy because, and he said, you just saved my life. They were like, he owed a bookie
Oh my
an
God.
extreme amount of money.
Wow.
And they were there to either collect or beat the guy up.
You weren't the only one coming to collect.
No. And so $20 for me was a lot better, you know what I mean? But it was, that was pretty funny.
Wow.
But at that same age of 11, I helped, my dad clean the VFW bar on the weekends. I was a bartender at the VFW there.
Yeah, I remember that.
On Saturdays, I cleaned a little candy store in Geneva called Fanny Farmers Candy. And then I cut grass and, shovel winter stuff. So I always had money in my pocket.
Yep.
And so independence was important for me back then because I didn't have a choice. If I didn't make the money, I couldn't go and do the things that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So hard work and just putting in the hours was never an issue for me. It was just part of life, And so, high school, graduated, wasn't the best student, probably pretty lazy. And I thought, okay, all my friends are going to college. I need to go to college. So I enrolled in a small community college to get my criminal justice degree.
Okay.
And I lasted, like I said, probably about 4 months. So at the time, after I graduated, I had some close friends whose families were connected to the fire department. They were firefighters, and so I ended up joining the fire department. And it was, not long after that I dropped out of college. I think my full-time job at that point was at a car wash. I literally moved in to the firehouse. It was actually before I even dropped out.
How old are you at this point?
18.
Okay.
Well, so I lived at the firehouse as a bunker. So basically, it meant you could live here for free. There's a fire call at 3 a.m. or 8 fire calls at 3 a.m. You're getting on the truck and going out. And so I lived there for, I think, almost 4 years. And I never experienced the frat, college frat. That's as close as
That's pretty close, probably.
Some of the best friends I've ever had still are from there. And, 4 other guys, we all lived together. And I think about different times in my life that was like the most fun. Easy Street comes to mind, just all the fun that we had there and the antics.
Oh, yeah.
Fire department, the same thing. And so started a blacktop ceiling business as well. So I did that on days off.
Okay.
With a good friend of mine who's also a fireman, Gene Perry, A&G Blacktop Ceiling. And so
Why wasn't it G&A?
I fought for that, probably.
Shocker.
Same reason it's to Williams Rich Fine Real Estate, right?
Yeah, that's a great point.
But I actually remember you and I going back and forth. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, of course I do.
This is going to come from left field.
Okay, tell me.
So when we were starting Easy Street, because we all had huge egos, right? 20-something-year-old kids with egos, right? What's our titles going to be? And so Chris Kupelhan, he was kind of the numbers guy, right? He was the CFO.
We drew him out of a hat.
Well, he chose his, Brian chose CEO. You and I were like, I want to be president. I want to be president. So I
got you on this.
Executive president.
Trust me.
Right? And then we drew it out of the hat that it was going to be at.
Yeah, my memory of this is that we drew him out of a hat, and I got Chris chose CFO, but
Right.
Brian pulled CEO out. I pulled out president, you pulled out secretary, and then you decided that you wanted to be called executive president. That's my memory. That's my memory. I think it might be, but we can
There's no way we would have had secretary in the mix. I guarantee you that.
I don't know.
But it's funny. But
No,
Yeah.
we decided we never used the titles.
No.
But it was all just for fun.
oh yeah,
But no, that's you and me. We always had some fun with different things.
did.
Well, seriously, it was also till the crash, but
Yeah.
it was definitely some of the best moments of my life. We had so much fun, and we built something cool, man. And
Yes.
a huge part of what we are today is from foundation you helped lay there. Thank you so much for
You guys-
being such a great partner.
Once you got me out of there, you guys just kind of took off. Put the rocket.
Sometimes you got to hear it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I when I was, I guess, about that time, I guess I would have been about 23. My sister had moved to Indiana years before, and I'd come visit her high school, and it was like she lived downtown Indy, so it was like for a kid that grew up in a small town, it was like, my gosh, this is amazing, right? And I'd visit her some, and she said, I bought a townhome in Castleton, Spinnaker Cove, and that place.
Yeah.
It's she's like, you could come stay with me and take the test for the fire department or just see. So I did that. I packed up my van and drove to Indiana. I moved in with her. My first job was at the Ground Round restaurant, Assets as a bar.
Now that you say that, I remember you worked to the Ground Round.
I framed houses for one day. I was like, okay, this is not, my hands are just much too sensitive for that. So that lasted a day. I don't think I paid for my tools,
Are you, you're getting there, but how'd you end up at Crossman?
Yeah, so my sister was a model home salesperson for deluxe homes.
Okay.
And a neighborhood Northwoods at Geist, which is near St. Simon.
Yeah.
And so part of what I was doing is, all these different part-time jobs just to have some cash. I would go in on her days off. She was off on Fridays, and I'd sit in the model home, basically let people through and get their information, close it up. And so I did that for her. And then, word spread a little bit that, I got somebody that if you need somebody to fill in, And so a good friend of hers, Kelly Timberlake with MI Homes, hired me, and I did it for her.
Yeah.
And crazy thing, I don't know if you remember this, I was actually Brian Holly's model home assistant.
Yes.
A little bit. And I joke with him, I'm like, I still don't think he paid me for those days.
Probably not.
And so, eventually, I kind of did that for 6 months. She ended up getting a job at CP Morgan.
Yes.
As a model home salesperson. They offered me a job as a full-time assistant there. I did that for a year, and then they hired me on as a full-time model home salesperson. Did that 3 years, and then Crossman, which they had changed the name of that
From
Deluxe to Crossman. They offered me a new home subdivision that was the first one that they were going to do in Kokomo.
I forgot you started in Kokomo.
Berkeley Meadows.
Berkeley Meadows.
And so what I loved about that on the marketing side was, okay, no one's ever been there now. So, I'd work the model home, and then at night, I'd go to all the apartments, get the addresses for a mailing list. And again, it was like, okay, I could use this for the marketing side.
Yeah.
It was always just something that was attractive. So, and that, that's where we learned everything. But I often say it, when I was at CP Morgan, that's where I really learned about like marketing and branding. They were the best.
They were.
At when you got to the model. Before you got to the model home, it's like Buc-ee's. Have you been to a Buc-ee's?
Yes.
You see all those billboards on your way to the Buc-ee's, and then you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, right? You remember all the directional signs that CP would put out?
Okay.
They
Yes.
put out like 50 for a neighborhood. So even before you got there, you're like, okay, this is different. Then you pull in the neighborhood, they had street sweepers that did it multiple times a week. They would find their contractors if they left messes in the houses they were building. The model homes were over the top. And although their strategy was maximum square feet for as little money as possible, when you went through there, it was like a Disney experience. And so,
It was.
being indoctrinated in that for years, it made you realize, okay, these things are important.
You were there 3 years? Man, that I wouldn't have remembered.
I was in Brownsburg,
Okay.
Thornburg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was there as a model assistant for 1 year and then 2 years at the in the model.
Bringing it full circle here. What do you remember about being at Crossman and making the decision to start the company?
Yeah. Well, the one thing I want to mention about Crossman is I learned marketing at CP. It was sales.
Yes.
At Crossman. And you hit it earlier. Like, I run into people all the time.
I knew you were going to say sales.
That, you've got presidents of title companies. You name it. There's some very successful people that cut their teeth at Crossman.
So many.
And learned how to sell, because we never had the best neighborhoods. We never had the best marketing. We never had the best promotions, or floor plans or model homes. But we were competitive, and we got after it. And
It wasn't quite a boiler room, but man,
it was.
coming into the sales meeting,
You didn't want to have a goose egg.
yeah, you had to see how many sales you had that week, and
Oh yeah.
that was
Absolutely.
no one wanted to come in there.
There
And then
was
it
a few
came in,
times-
you don't want to come in less than 2 or 3 or whatever the number was for a while.
There was a few times. Mike Kirk.
In a week.
Yeah, Mike Kirkwood.
Oh, yeah.
Good buddy of mine. He would buy investment properties, and there was a few times he was thinking about buying one. I was like, listen, I got zero this week. If you buy it, I'll not charge you a commission. I'll take out the price of the house. I did not want to go on with zero.
Why is that not surprising?
So, yeah, you just learned so much on the sales side there.
Yes.
Which, listen, we're not salespeople. We're more counselors for people, right?
Well, that was a different time.
That was a
We were selling for a builder.
Yeah. So, I think that, that was one of the big differences there.
Yeah.
And then, it was a great culture, at Crossman. We extremely competitive, but,
Fun.
we didn't want to lose. And I mean, I remember, I was at a new neighborhood, Sungate and Glenwoods.
Well, I remember
And
that.
Best Homes was there.
Yeah.
And help me with her last name. It was Laura.
Kolick.
Laura Kolek. She was at the Best Home. We were in trailers. No running water. No model homes. We're selling off floor plans.
Yeah.
And my gosh, she was so freaking good.
She's good.
She was so good and polished. And I was like, ugh. And
You remember Lori Davis Smith, of course.
Yeah.
Her and I were talking about Laura Kolick yesterday.
yeah, she was fantastic. And, if I was writing a deal, and she knew it was a customer that she was working with, she'd call me on the phone, give me grief, and I would do it. But, I was never the type that, doesn't matter what it is you pick at. Sports, academics, anything. I was never the best at anything. If I wanted to try to excel, I had to put more effort in or figure a way to do it differently. And so with Laura, I'm like, seriously, they had great floor plans, these amazing promotions. So it was funny, and this is so petty, but in front of our trailers, we would have landscaping put in, bushes,
Right.
but it was in summer. And again, there was no water. So what I would do is I always made sure I got there before her, and I would never leave until she left. Even if she had an appointment, I would stay there until she left. And what she didn't realize is when she left, I'd pop my trunk and I'd have 8 gallons of water and I'd water my landscaping. And so within 3 weeks, her landscaping is all wilted. Mine looks just green as can be, but it's that competitive thing, We also had,
Also creative and shrewd.
we all had that, but that's, I think, served us really well
Oh, man.
over the years. But so, Crossman thing, we all got to know each other. And then, Carrie Campbell and Realty Alliance just took the market by storm. And we just thought, we could probably do something and maybe change it up a little bit, do some different marketing and everything. And
I always say we didn't blaze the trail, but we paved it.
right. And it was fun. And it was scary though, because if you remember, Ross wasn't even a year old.
Oh, yeah.
And Ross's mom was a stay-at-home mom. And so it was like, okay, this better work. And I remember, when we did our first flyer drop, we went to lunch the next day. We were all exhausted because we were out till 4 or 5 in the morning putting those out. And we were, freaking out because nothing came through. And if you remember back then, we each had fax machines
Oh,
in
yeah.
our houses. So people would call the number and go to an answering service. And then we would get a fax with all their information. I'm checking the line. Is this thing working? Because we expected this thing just to go off, right? And we were just like, oh my gosh, do you think that Crossman will take us back? We made a terrible mistake.
But then it did go off.
And then we went back from lunch, and I just remember it was 5:30 that night, the fax machine. Wow. And then it was...
That's the sound of money.
It was then it took off from there.
It did.
Yeah.
Well, partner, Alan, thanks for
Pleasure.
sitting down with me, man.
Absolutely.
It's great to catch up,
Likewise.
and let's do it more often.
Sounds good.